We have a cold front that is approaching, and it'll finally sweep all the clouds and showers offshore, and then we can get into a nice dry air mass that right now sits over the plain states. We'll move that in for the second half of this week and maybe even extend it into part of the weekend. Tropics are on the busy side. We'll take a look at what's going on there. And it's still very summery in the southwestern part of the United States where they've got all sorts of excessive heat and 110-degree plus highs. But we're pretty much normal here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by, well, it's not really brought to you by, but if you'd like to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, you can do so by you shopping our referral link for on Amazon, and that is pinned to the top of the chat board, and it's on the description to this podcast. Pretty easy. Just search for your stuff, buy it. Amazon will throw us back a little bit of coin. It doesn't come out of your pocket, and everybody's happy. So consider supporting the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast by using the referral link on Amazon. I guess you were stuck on the Met game.
No, I actually, one of the reasons I'm a little delayed tonight is that my computer, every so often, as I'm coming on, puts these messages up alerting me to the fact that Windows 10 support from Windows 10 is going to end as of October 17th. And why don't you try Windows 11? And when I say no, I'm not going to do Windows 11, instead of just saying arbitrarily, okay, I accept that and let me go straight on, it starts arguing with me. Are
Right.
you sure you don't
Sure
want
you
to?
don't want to do this?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I still have Windows 10. Maybe I
I'm
will consider.
surprised you still don't have Windows 3.1.
Hey, I have a computer that's right next to the one I'm using
I am
where I have
sure.
where I'm using Windows XP on that one.
Oh God.
And the reason why I have this computer that's next to this one dates back to 2006. And
Yeah,
Joe,
I know.
the reason why I'm still using that computer is I have a program which I use for all of my astronomy columns. It's called Dance of the Planets. It is a wonderful program which simulates orbits of comets and all sorts of stuff. I really don't know what I would do without it. And the problem is that I could put it on this computer, but if I put it on this computer, it's believe it or not, Dance of the Planets dates back to 1994, and it's a DOS program.
Oh, well,
And I have a DOS emulator on this computer that I'm on right now. But if I were to use it on this computer, it looks like um, uh, a much smaller screen and a little blurry. It comes up perfectly on this old time, old fashioned 18-year-old computer. So I'm going to continue with this computer for as long as it goes, using again Windows XP. And, and when this computer goes, all right, I'll just put Dance of the Planets on this computer. But for now, whenever I do stuff for space.com or the Hayden Planetarium, I go over to this computer, the old one, because everything comes out crystal clear and clean. On this computer, that program runs as if it were non-high def. It's like when you watch on your television, like The Honeymooners, which obviously is not a high def program, and
right.
you can see like the black borders on either side, and it's a
Sure.
smaller screen or whatever. And that program on this computer comes out like a non-high definition
Well,
view.
you know,
So
if it's making your life easier, all the more power to you.
yeah,
Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight. And those of you who are watching in the background, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m., the occasional Friday and Saturday when there's a storm around. Do subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us. Turn your notifications on. And if you like the show, hit the like button because we like to be liked.
and
Um,
on the chat board, Maggie P says we have an old Dell, and then they're great. And I'll tell you right now, Maggie, this computer that is the old time, this is the Dell computer, and I have had more problems with the one I'm working on right now with all of you. Is an HP computer. That computer, the Dell computer, hardly ever gives me any problems, and it's going into its 18th year of service. So
Nice.
there you go.
Well, you should write a letter to Michael Dell and let him know how wonderful his 18-year-old product has stood up against time.
Well, back when you remember, Joe, when we used to work at both News 12 and also you at Pix 11, and then together at FiOS 1, the WSI computers all used Dell as their main the main hardware was Dell computers on
Yeah.
for graphics and
No,
everything else.
they're great machines. Johnny Quest hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Johnny. He says the rain is over where he is in northwestern Virginia, 26.37 inches in
Unbelievable.
the mountains. And he's near higher, the top of the mountain. So all that rain rolls down in the valley. Says his roads are closed all over the place. Yeah, I still, the problems in western North Carolina just continue. It's as we've been saying, it's beyond comprehension uh, what what's happened there. At least uh, the weather has really calmed down across the country. There's not a whole lot going on, certainly from the standpoint of precipitation, Joe. It's looking very quiet. Once this cold front goes by, it sweeps the last of the clouds and whatever showers that are around go out. Looks like it's going to be quiet for the rest of the week. Another front similar to this will pass through on Saturday. I don't know how much, if any, precip's going to be with that. So it's just going to be mostly dry and calm for much of the United States into the first part of next week.
Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, on my Facebook forecast for the lower Hudson Valley, I do mention, excuse me, the only time I mention any kind of precipitation actually is not until Monday of next week, of more clouds and sun, a few showers, especially before noontime. And one thing that I think should be mentioned about the extended forecast, Joe, is that I think we're going to see some increasingly windy conditions later Monday and especially on into Tuesday when it will turn windy and rather cool. We're talking about temperatures. I'm talking about temperatures here in the lower Hudson Valley on Monday around 67, only 63 for a high with the sun returning on Tuesday. And that contrasts sharply with what we're looking for, what I'm looking for later in the week for Thursday and for Friday and Saturday and even Sunday. I've got temperatures in the 70s. In fact, you might even call it unseasonably mild for both Thursday and Friday, with temperatures again possibly getting to or even above 75. And it's October now, folks. I mean, if
Yeah,
you're still hoping for temperatures in the 80s, I would say hope real hard because I don't think you're going to get it.
no, and actually with this sort of westerly flow that started to gradually take over, it looks like it'll be dominating a bit more next week because more cold fronts coming through and cooler highs coming down from Canada. So by the middle of the month, we're probably going to be on the coolish side in the eastern part of the U.S. in general.
I'm sure the people who are in the southwestern states, and you mentioned it at the top of the show, that are suffering right now from extreme temperatures, rather hot temperatures, would love to have some of those cooling breezes, but it's not for them.
115 when I checked last time. I looked a little while ago. I think it was Palm Springs, 115, and the humidity was a whopping 6%.
Yeah,
And I think Phoenix was 108, and the dew point was r- oppressive 11%. So the skies are mostly clear in both places. Yeah, the Southwest is definitely hot again. Well, it's mostly ridging in the west, and when you get some ridging in the west, you get some troughing, or in this particular case, it's not impressive troughing, but enough to start moving weather systems along, which is what we want to get out of this um, cloud muck that we've been in for a while. That's Emma's and Mary, by the way, is what that word starts with. But here we go on the eastern part of the United States. By the way, have some coastal flood issues in parts of New Jersey, down to Delaware, Chesapeake Bay, to southeastern Virginia again, because we've had this onshore flow pretty much straight through the last 2 weeks of varying intensity. Now that's going to go away finally, which is a plus. And you can see we have excessive heat warnings and heat advisories in the southwest and up and down coastal California. Red flag issues and elevated fire risk being indicated in areas across the western Dakotas and western Nebraska back into Wyoming and eastern Montana. Other than that, the watches and warnings map has little to show. And here's a satellite loop tonight, and you can see the next cold front. It's like this little arm, almost like a pencil, that runs down from just north of Lake Huron, further south into southern Indiana, western Kentucky. That's the catalyst that's finally sweeping out the what's left of the upper trough that was that deep upper low in the lower Mississippi Valley that uh, grabbed Hurricane Helene and pulled it up into the Carolina mountains and then swung it back westward into Kentucky and Tennessee. Finally, that's moved along. So just have to kind of get through this house cleaning period to get that front to pass, Joe. And then behind it, it's mostly dry air back in the plains. There's some kind of uh, cloud cover that's moving over the top into the Dakotas and into Minnesota. That's moving fairly quickly eastward behind that front. That must be some sort of little upper air disturbance that's going by. But overall, once that front goes by, we should see general improvement, especially for Thursday and Friday, which look like two very nice days. I think it's going to last into the weekend.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, the only time I'm going to be mentioning any precipitation of any significance here, not until the early part of next week. Got a couple of cold fronts that'll be moving through at the start of next week. The second of those two fronts will combine with an intensifying low pressure system to our north and east later Monday into Tuesday, and that'll get the winds started kicking up and bringing down some really cool, comfortable autumn air into our area. So, looking forward to that.
The improvement of the weather, by the way, in terms of all the cloud cover, is going to happen through much of the East Coast because you can see that the clouds have extended all the way down into Alabama. It was a little better today here in North Georgia. We had a cloudy morning and sunshine in the afternoon, and now it's clouded up again with this little disturbance that's kind of swinging southeastward. We do have some disturbed weather in parts of the Caribbean and also in the central Gulf of Mexico. Nothing here that's going to develop into a tropical depression or a tropical storm anytime soon. And here's what it looks like on the radar. Still some spotty light showers down into West Virginia, Western North Carolina, Western Virginia. Nothing that's causing any kind of additional isolated flash flood warnings like we had yesterday. There's a little patch of rain there in central PA. And then you see the showers with the cold front, very narrow and a narrowing area of showers. It's pretty wide on the Canada side of Lake Huron, Jason Fox. I know you seem to like the fact that I said Lake Huron tonight. I'm saying it again, Lake Huron. And that line just narrows, a pencil thin line cutting down through Ohio and Indiana. We've got some spotty showers and a few downpours and a couple of thunderstorms in central Florida and a little bit of stuff aloft in northwestern Washington state, and that's it. That's about it, really. Yeah, there's also a couple of showers. In spite of all that sunshine and heat, there are some showers building up in central and eastern Arizona and also in south central Arizona. You can see them there. They're actually moving from west to east. And that's, I think, where probably the Storm Prediction Center has a little area of general thunderstorm risk there, little area of general thunderstorm risk in Florida, eastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, central and northern Ohio, and eastern Michigan. Otherwise, no severe weather is forecast for uh, the three forecast periods. Uh, this is tonight, and then we go to tomorrow, and that's only in Florida where we have some general thunderstorms forecast, and day three, the Gulf Coast and Florida. So severe weather finally winding down here.
And thank you very much to Birder Lady, who has hit the tip jar tonight. And she is asking Joe if we could speak about the CAG, Central American Gyre.
Yes, we shall speak about the such the with the Central American gyre. Uh, I will progress to that momentarily, birder lady. So,
Okay.
WPC, here's the 7-day rainfall totals: half to three quarters in upstate New York and central and northern New England, a quarter of an inch in southern New England and southern New York back into Pennsylvania, a tenth of an inch. This is 7-day rainfall amounts, folks. A tenth of an inch to central New Jersey, and just a couple of hundreds from southern New Jersey down to southern Georgia. And most of the country is in that big area of white. No precipitation for the next 7 days. The moisture that you see covering the Gulf of Mexico, obviously, that's for the fishes and the oil rigs, but it does extend over Florida, where there could be several inches of rain over the next 7 days. Now what's what they're showing here in the Gulf probably reflects lower than normal pressures that are going to be there, and the prospects for tropical cyclone development. So we'll be, of course, keeping our eyes on that. So as far as the gyre, I'm going to take and the Western Atlantic view probably shows it well. So you'll notice here, this is on the uh, GFS for tonight, and all this moisture uh, covering the Gulf of Mexico, the Southwest Gulf, much all of Central America, and then off the coast on the other side. So what often happens sometimes is that when you look well up into the atmosphere, there's some kind of I'm going to see if we can actually see something of it. I'm trying to see what would be a good level to look at. The I don't know. I guess let's see if the 500 does us any good. No, it doesn't really show up there.
It's just kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, it really doesn't show up there at all. Let me just back this up. Let's try. Uh, let's see if I can maybe the 850. No, that wouldn't work. Let's do maybe the wind shear might show it better. Let's see. Oh boy. Now, it doesn't really show it that well, but ultimately what's happening is you're getting just a basic rotation of moisture. And you kind of sort of pick it up here when we get to the 36 hour. You get this just general rotation of moisture over Central America, and little disturbances kind of break off as they rotate around this so-called gyre. You probably really does show up better on the sat on a moisture map or satellite loop, but you can see it here. And little lows just kind of form and break off. There's one that breaks off on the Pacific side that is going to push eastward. I'm sorry, westward over time. That might be a new tropical depression that they indicated of the Weather Service indicated on the Pacific side. On the Atlantic side, on the Atlantic Basin side, you got these little perturbations going into the Northwest Caribbean, and then there's one there in the Southwest Gulf that forms in a couple of days. Looks like a small tropical storm that develops. Although the Hurricane Center's just got this sort of general area there. When you have this gyre, you get these systems that break off, and of course, Helene was one such system, and there have been a couple of others this year that have developed in this gyre. And I suspect as we go through the next 2 months that remain of hurricane season, we'll probably see a couple of more come out of that pocket.
Yeah, and how many did we say? We have 11. We have 11 named storms so far.
Yeah, I think by tomorrow we'll have Leslie also in the tropical Atlantic, so that'll be 12.
Right. So it's things are rolling along here, and again, not as uh, dramatic as what we were led to believe by some of the news media, saying how this was going to be an incredibly active hurricane season. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about, by this time, we should have seen, like 20 or 25 names. I mean, they were really giving us the idea that we might even be seeing a transition to the secondary list when we run out of names. And it really has not worked out that way. Again, that prediction back in the spring was based upon this being a La Nina summer. It was never a La Nina summer. La Nina, I think they're still waiting for La Nina to rev up, Joe, and the abnormally warm temperatures of the Caribbean and Atlantic coastal areas.
Mark G, thanks for the generous super chat hit tonight. Appreciate it. Uh, so you want a pattern setting storms to look out for across the globe. Okay, I'll tell you what, because that's going to require me to do a little bit of diving, and I'm not going to be able to do that now on the fly. But over the next day or two or three, I'll start to, we're into October now, so everybody's going to start to have the big questions with regards to the upcoming winter, so we can at least see what's going on. But I promise you, I will, go ahead and try and do that. The gyres that go by back to the gyre thing, these come and go from time to time. Some seasons you see very weak ones, or they're much further south and they just start generating storms all over the place in the Pacific, and they really don't do much on the Atlantic side. But when they're displaced far enough north, like this one has been this year, you keep getting these spin-offs in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. Now, we do have Hurricane Kirk. Okay. Kirk, Joe, 16.2 north, 40.1 west. Maximum sustained winds at 75 miles an hour. It's supposed to be forecast to become a major hurricane by Thursday sometime. And it's moving northwest at 12 already, which means that it'll barely make it to 50 degrees west before it turns north and northeastward out into the open waters of the Atlantic. So there's that. And on the outlook, the next system to look at, um, we have to the southwest of Kirk and southeast of and southwest of I'm sorry, southeast of Kirk and southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. We have another tropical wave that's well organized, and the conditions are favorable for this to develop. And the models do develop this into a tropical depression or a tropical storm behind Kirk, and it'll probably have the same fate where it'll just tail it up into the open waters of the Atlantic. And then they're still holding on to a 40% chance in the longer term for something to form in the Gulf of Mexico. Kind of shifted that a bit more to the northwest, which is what the GFS, by the way, has picked up on this evening, which, it's not over this weekend, but it does spin up something down there that looks pretty small and then heads out toward Florida by the middle part of next week. Now, this is a new thing. It's been showing lower than normal pressures there and a couple of weak systems. It hasn't been doing very much with them. Neither have the other models really. So this 18Z run decided to spin this up. We'll wait until for a couple of days to see if that's going to be the new reality. But in the meantime, when you look across the U.S., it is so darn quiet here. We've got this front, as I said, coming through for tomorrow. Most of the showers, what little there are, will go by to our north and west. Thursday looks fine. Friday looks good. Another front passes by Friday night. Some showers go by to our north across upstate New York and northern New England, and the weekend looks okay. And then we have a stronger front with a developing low off of Cape Cod next Monday night. And yeah, Joe, a few isobars there and a nice high with some cool air coming down, and even let's see, we got 534 thicknesses up in Maine and New Hampshire. So let's put, oh, you look, it's got some blue up there, Joe. Got a little snow up there in northern Vermont and northern New Hampshire for Monday night, Tuesday of next week. So that's something to think about. And then after
Yeah.
those go by, it just still looks like an overall dry pattern with just weak cold fronts coming by, a little more blue as we move into the middle of the month over the Great Lakes, but nothing major. You like that blue though. That's a hint of where we're going, isn't it?
I would think so. Yeah.
The
I
North
mean,
Atlantic.
why don't you check Siberia and see how their snow cover is?
Oh no, it just started there. That hasn't worked. As soon as everybody found out about that, it stopped working.
Yeah.
The whole idea was that um, excessive snow cover growth rate in Siberia was tied to cold winters in the east, and it worked pretty fine for about 15 or so years. And then everybody started jumping on it. And of course, once everybody figured out that something works, it stops working. But we'll look at it in a couple of weeks to see what it's doing. You can see there's two hurricanes here out in the central Atlantic. There's Kirk. This is going into Sunday, up well northeast of Bermuda, sort of halfway between Bermuda and the Azores. And then what will be Leslie as a hurricane behind it gets pulled up northward. By the way, the models take Kirk in some one form or another as a fairly intense Atlantic cyclone into northern France and the Netherlands, passing just south of Ireland and going into the English Channel uh, sometime uh, later next week. So it's the time of year where you start to get these big Atlantic hurricanes sometimes that they eventually transition into these fairly powerful extratropical storms that go up into Western Europe. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays. And then that system you talked about for Tuesday, Joe, gets pretty wound up there in Atlantic Canada, 972 low between Newfoundland and Greenland.
And that's why I think we're going to see increasingly windy conditions here on Monday. And I could see, winds 20, 25 sustained here out of the north northwest on Tuesday. I could even, I mean, see gusts to like 30 or 40 on Tuesday. It's going to be a pretty, need I say, rather brisk day, I think, on Tuesday. And with those temperatures in the low to mid 60s and that kind of a wind, it'll probably feel more like the 50s. So here comes fall.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at the long range 500, what it looks like. Uh, yeah, a little blocky up at Greenland. A lot of troughing down in the Aleutians. Ridge in the middle. There's nothing. Well, it gets cold looking around the middle of the month. A little vortex there over Hudson Bay that strengthens. It has a pretty deep, cold looking trough. Next, this is around mid-month, extending from the northern part of Lake Hudson Bay all the way down to North Florida. And that's a chilly look if it verifies.
Yeah, I would say so.
Of course, it'll be gone on the next run.
I
So I
I
mean,
don't think that's going to be the
why
case.
bother? You don't think what?
I said I don't think that's going to be the case. That it'll be gone on the next run.
All right. Let's do a little bit of Griller Jeopardy tonight, and tonight we are doing average annual snowfall for the following cities. Okay, and we have five plus a bonus. Um, Atlanta, average annual snowfall for Atlanta.
Oh, Atlanta. Well,
Atlanta.
how about I'd say 8 inches.
Oh God, not even close. That's actually a little low for me here in North Georgia.
Uh-huh.
Um, Rich Rothmansky. All right, we're going to use round numbers here. So 2.7 rounds up to 3. So that's just a little bit too high, Patrick Darcy. So now he changes it to 2. So 2 is the correct answer. 2 for Atlanta. Now, how about Boston?
Well, here in New York at Central Park, it's like 30.2 inches. Boston, I'd probably go with a bit higher. I'd say maybe 40.
It's on the low side. Michael McGuire is very close with 48. And let's see, Chuck Cardillo, you're a little high at 51. Patrick Darcy, you're a little less close at 47. Craig Kahlberg, you're kind of close at 51. Mark G, you're not quite as close. But Christina Pedia, 49. Maggie P, 49. Give them a bell ring, Joe.
I will give them the bell ring.
Give them a bell ring.
Remember, you remember, it was about 5 or 8 years ago, Boston had 100 over 100 inches of snow in one season.
Yeah,
Right?
well, that was, I think, 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
Baltimore,
Baltimore.
Baltimore,
Well, you know what? I'm going to play this game. It was what did we say in Boston? 48,
49.
49, and here in New York it's about 30. I'm going to say so for Baltimore I'll say what am I going to say? I'll
I don't know.
say
You haven't said it. Once you said it, then you would have said it, but you haven't said it. So
all
say
right.
it.
Hang on. 11.
Oh, not even close. Anthony, Craig Carlberg, Rothmansky, all hit it with 19.
Now
19.
when was the last time they had 19 inches of snow
That's the
in the
average snowfall. Don't argue with me. This is just the numbers I put there, put in front of me. Chicago, Joe.
Chicago? I'll say 45.
Um, it's a wise thing to go high, go with a high number for Chicago, being by the lake and all. That's a little too high. Anthony is closer with 37. Patrick Darcy, you're very close at 40, and Vincent Croce nails it at 39. And finally, Cleveland.
Well, you talk about lake effect. I mean, one thing I also about Cleveland. Cleveland, I read somewhere has the very best snow clearing service at their airport. They do everything really fast in Cleveland, no matter how much snow falls there, and they are prone to lake effect. So what possibly could they get? I'll say. See, here's the thing. How much possibly could they get, have? I'll say 67.
That's pretty close. Mike Waterhouse Bonsai is at 66. And Patrick Darcy is at 65. Rich Rothmansky is at 66. Christina Pedia at 63. You're the closest one yet. So it's 64. 64. That's for Cleveland. And the bonus, of course, is always Caribou, Maine. And would you like to give a shot at Caribou, Maine? I always get it wrong. Caribou, I always get wrong.
I'll just say a flat 100.
Wise to go three digits, but you needed to go three digits a little higher. Rich Rothmansky is at 115, which is a little low. Christina Petey is at 123, which is a little high. Um, Patrick Darcy at 120, very close. A couple of folks more with 121. 116 is a little low. 117 is better. 118 is the answer. Mike Waterhouse Bonsai. 118.
Wow.
So there you have it. Okay, I'm tired tonight. I walked, I think, almost 7 miles today.
Well,
So
congratulations. I had,
I'm wiped out. I wanted to crawl into bed at 5 o'clock this afternoon.
well, Renata and I had our grandson over, which meant we had to get up at 6 o'clock this morning,
Hmm.
and we had him until our son picked him up just after 3:30 this afternoon, and he's becoming a handful, Joe. Well, you know that being a grandpa, and so I told Renata tomorrow is his eighth birthday. He's going to be 8 months old, and I said, you just wait until he starts walking. Then we're really then it's going to really be fun.
Doesn't it go? It goes so fast.
It does.
It really
It
does go
absolutely.
so fast
Yep.
when you have your own kids, and then it goes fast enough. And when it's your grandkids, it goes even faster. Okay, um, no more philosophy. Time to say goodnight. So we'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Weather looks pretty quiet, so I'm thinking about maybe we'll take Thursday off, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. All right.
All
So
righty, sir.
And Johnny Quest, Burner Lady, and Mark G all hitting the chat tip jar tonight. Thank you very much. And Mark, I won't forget. We'll give me a few days to kind of delve into what's happening, and we'll see you around. Night, night.
Good night, folks.